Hello and welcome. You're watching Newsx and I'm Megha Sharma. Now, ever since the news of possible adulteration of laddoos in Tirupati broke out, it has become a concern of a larger degree of whatever we consume, is it really pure? Viewers, it's important for us to understand that this is not the first instance of food adulteration in India. Just last month, the Rajasthan government held up spice companies on charges of pesticides and insecticides found in samples. Even in Hyderabad, 4 individuals were arrested in February over adulteration of ginger garlic paste. The Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, keeping in mind the provisions envisaged under the Food Safety and Standards Act 2006, revised in 2011, directed states to conduct special drives to check for adulteration in companies, especially during the festive season. The Food Safety and Standards Act 2006, amended several times in 2011, lays down rules and penalties to penalize individuals found guilty of producing, manufacturing and even storing adulterants. Apart from this, the FSSAI also has to detect the adulteration with rapid test known as DART test, which provides 50 provisions through which an individual can check and account for adulteration at home. The Safety Authority of India also provides a portal for citizens to be able to voice their concerns and make complaints. Section 38, 59, 59 amongst other provisions list down instances as well as penalties, including that of life imprisonment in case the act of consuming an adulterated substance leads to death of an individual. Not just in India, countries like United States of America and China also suffer from the very same menace, with contamination in avocados, presence of plastic, impure substances in milk and other items. The question, therefore, is that not just how does one decipher edible items from contaminated goods, and how does one ensure that they eat right amidst the global fight against adulteration? Let's start this conversation. I have with me KV Dhananjay, who is a senior advocate, joining me on the telecast. KV Dhananjay, let's understand, the legal issue over here. Okay, all right, I'm being told that KV Dhananjay is yet to join us on the telecast. I have with me, okay, we do have KV Dhananjay. Good to have you on the telecast, KV Dhananjay. And let's understand, the legal implications of this case that has been brought into the Supreme Court's notice. At this time, there have been no tests of this allegedly contaminated, adulterated ghee that has been done by the state authorities, by the Food Authority of India. There has been a report from a laboratory which is not a government-run laboratory or government-regulated laboratory that has come out with these allegations. What is going to be the next step for the Supreme Court to take forward in this case? Okay, KV Dhananjay, you'll have to unmute yourself because we're not able to hear you right now. Okay, while KV Dhananjay fixes that audio problem, I am requesting Siddharth Dubey to answer the same question for me. Now, with regards to how there is an allegation that has been put forth, but right now, the government authority has still not gotten into the picture to actually verify and confirm that these reports by the laboratory are actually true.
If I'm audible.
Yes, you are now.
Okay, so I'm sorry for this glitch. So what I wanted to point out is that the people who have leveled these allegations certainly ought to know that the allegation is of such grave nature. There is simply no parallel to an allegation like this. We haven't seen an allegation like this of this great magnitude in the last 20-30 years, because that is all we can actually readily find by searching the internet. So the allegation is of such massive significance, also because what has been adulterated at the end of nobody knows what really was the motive behind this adulteration. Was the motive to save costs on procuring proper ghee? And and again, it's such a large-scale enterprise. The Tirumala Devasthanam every day produces 30,000 plus laddus. So the ghee that they would want, say, of such great magnitude, it's nearly impossible to secure it from smaller players. So they will have to go to the larger players. Now, if larger players contracted to supply ghee of such great magnitude, and then this test, which has just uncovered beef and pork ingredients, tallow, fat in that, which so this matter certainly deserves the attention of every great authority in this country for two reasons. One, it's not just a matter of food adulteration; it's also a matter of how the devout, the devotees have been taken for a ride here. And I'm very sure people who go to Tirupati Tirumala temple and then obtain that laddu and then preserve it, bring it back to their family member, and then share it with their friends, they would never forgive, even if the law certainly imposes a punishment of 6 months or 1 year or 2 years. And should there be, let's assume the allegation to be well founded, let's also assume that there will be a prosecution and all the ones involved are punished to the fullest term, probably, which is not more than 2 years. Even then, I could state with certainty that the devotees would never forgive those who have done this. So it's important that this matter is of that magnitude to start with. Number one. Number two, that the allegations have come forward. It's important for the Andhra Pradesh government to now spring into action, because all said and done, if this matter should go to a court, the question arises as to who collected this laddu. And at the end of the day, we're looking at 30,000 laddus. So it can't be that there was a selective adulteration of just one or a small batch. It certainly, the allegation certainly is that this is happening in a large scale. So the Andhra Pradesh government certainly should, in fact, stop distributing further laddus if it believes in this allegation.
Okay.
If it believes in this allegation, it has to stop it, and it has to take a large number of laddus that are already in its storage, because it's not like you prepare a laddu at 1 o'clock and then you get distributed at 1 o'clock 1 minute, because the laddus actually can be preserved for a few days. So it's always like you prepare it today and then store it for some time and then distribute it.
Again, the two aspects of the case. One is about adulteration that has happened, but the other aspect about the faith of the Hindu community that has been destroyed beyond repair. It's betrayal of the piousness that is involved. The spirituality that people hold very close to their heart when they go to the Tirumala Tirupati temple. While there are going to be repercussion that will have to be faced by the company who all are responsible for it in terms of the adulteration, there is again a larger cost that is involved over here on the cost of the faith of the Hindus across the country, across the world. There has been this deceiving activity that has carried on. Now, what could be the price that these individuals, these companies, these authorities will have to pay?
Well, as a matter of law, the law is not a very great safeguard here, because we already have laws, and laws look at injury. Now, injury in real sense means that was the ingredient of such a nature that it was not edible to start with? Was the ingredient of such a nature, if ingested, would lead to a physical harm, physical damage? We're not dealing with any of those. So the law always, deals with offenses like this. Without bringing religion into account, but the law certainly awards a lesser punishment where there is contamination, but the contaminating ingredients themselves are not a health risk. Now, beef and pork are edible at the end of the day. So the law, therefore, like I did say, the devotees are not going to forgive whoever did this. And the law, at the end of the day, is not going to impose 7-year jail term or 10-year jail term. The most jail term that anybody would get here is 2 years only, because the ingredients in this case are edible ingredients. I've read the report. And that is exactly why I've been pointing out that it's important now for the government to confirm if this allegation, if there is truth to this allegation. Because whatever was found, whatever was tested by that lab, I would want to believe that maybe, somebody genuinely felt that there is some contamination and he went to a lab, which lab also genuinely wanted to test, but ended up mixing ended up with a wrong sample, or that they in fact didn't test it properly, or that there were residues from previous testing of some other sample, something like that. I'm of course not that I personally want to believe that. It's just that some of the people that I've spoken to are in denial visibly and naturally, because they don't want to believe something like this could happen. And the government of Andhra Pradesh has to take note of this sentiment of a large number of people. They should subject existing laddoos to tests and confirm if this allegation is true or not. Otherwise,
yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I have with me Siddharth Dubey, who's a consumer policy advocate as well. Now, Siddharth Dubey, like I said, at this point of time, there are issues with regards to one side of it, adulteration that has happened, but the larger price that needs to be paid to an individual, by a company who has betrayed the faith of millions of Hindus. Now, what is the cost that the Supreme Court can attach to such kind of betrayal that has happened?
All right. Am I audible? First of all.
Yes, you are.
देखिए, सबसे पहले तो हम बात करते हैं जो रिपोर्ट आई. Before saying anything, I would like to point out with the report. The report says the executive officer, Mrs. Shamala Rao, said that the ghee was adulterated with both vegetable and animal fats. This raises grave concerns as providing of substandard foods as prasad offering is another issue, but using of animal fat in itself is altogether another different issue. Rather than negligence, it is a criminal offense. Even the Indian Penal Code itself specifies that the adulteration of such foods is a penal offense. Now, the report said that the ghee sample was adulterated with vegetable fat and animal fat.
Yes, we all know that. Yes, we already know that. It's amply clear what the laboratory report says. What I am interested in knowing, Mr. Siddharth Dubey, is that beyond the repercussions, beyond the cost that the Supreme Court is going to levy on the person and individuals and companies that are involved in this scam, in this adulteration, over and above, what are the charges that will implicate these individuals for making people of Hindu faith across the globe, millions and millions of them, who have consumed this adulterated piece of prasad and betrayed their faith? Is there a cost involved in this, and what is that cost?
Sure, I got your question. I got the crux of your question. देखिए, सबसे पहले जब हम बात करते हैं एडल्ट्रेशन एक्ट की, बिकॉज ऑब्वियसली कंज्यूमर प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट 2019 है, प्रिवेंशन ऑफ फूड एडल्ट्रेशन एक्ट 1954 है, इंडियन पीनल कोड है. ये तीनों एक्ट्स जो हैं ये स्पेसिफाई करते हैं एडल्ट्रेशन के बारे में. इवन दो इंडियन पीनल कोड हैज बीन रिपील्ड एंड नाउ बीएनएस इज इन इट्स प्लेस, बट ऑब्वियसली देयर आर सेक्शंस एंड प्रोविजंस दैट डील विद इट. उसके साथ साथ एक गोल्डन रूल ऑफ इंटरप्रिटेशन होता है, जो कि एक स्टूडेंट ऑफ लॉ जब लॉ स्टार्ट करता है पढ़ना, तो गोल्डन रूल ऑफ इंटरप्रिटेशन इज टॉट. गोल्डन रूल ऑफ इंटरप्रिटेशन ये कहता है दैट द जजेस बेंच और द जुडिशरी, इफ इट वांट्स, इट कैन अप्लाई इट्स जुडिशियल माइंड एंड उसके साथ साथ इट कैन प्रोवाइड द वर्डिक्ट एज इट डीम्स फिट. नाउ कभी कभार ऐसा होता है कि दैट द ऑफेंस दैट हैज बीन मेंशन्ड, though that offense has been mentioned, but the severity or the severity of the crime is so much that कहीं ना कहीं हमें जितना mentioned price, mentioned cost है या mentioned penal imprisonment है, उससे कहीं ना कहीं बढ़ के आगे देने की जरूरत पड़ती है, and that is what the golden rule of interpretation is all about.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. All right. Professor Pradeep Kulshetra also on the telecast with me. Professor Kulshetra, would you like to shed light into what has happened currently in the case, and particularly with regards to the Supreme Court coming into this and now finally the case is going to be heard by the Supreme Court, by the bench. How is this scenario going to unfold over the days, weeks, or perhaps even months when this case is going to be played out in the courts?
Yeah, it's a very sensational disclosure, which is on record by a constitutional authority, a chief minister of a state, and he has come up with this startling disclosure, which has affected sensibility of most of the people, because Tirupati Balaji is held in a very high esteem, and laddu are a very sacred. So when this allegation came, and the allegation is based upon a test report of a lab, of a government lab. So when we see a person when he is laddu is a prasadam, so it can be given as a free offering, or people buy also these laddus. So there are two set of rules applicable here. So if we see Consumer Protection Act 2019, it says it provides for certain exclusion clauses that if it good is bought, or if it is not for consideration or for consideration. So if laddu is an offering and then one is not paying for it, then Consumer Protection Act strictly 2019 is not applicable to this affair. But if laddus are bought, then consumer has a right to be informed of the ingredients, and also consumer has right to be heard if there are some issues, and also consumer has a basic right to be safety, because consumer is it's a prasad. So it's not people are devotee and they go and they never expect the ingredient of such nature will be there.
Okay.
So I'm sure Supreme Court has
Okay.
taken cognizance of the matter, and Supreme Court will come up with this decision, because it's quite shocking to the conscience of the people
Okay,
at
all right,
large.
all right. I also have with me Advocate Vineet Jindal, and I have to look back at a case, which is not similar to what has happened, but there was this Patanjali case that garnered quite garnered quite a lot of public attention, especially with the number of consumers that were consuming the products. Now, do you think the kind of punishment, the penalty that was awarded to the company was equivalent or up to the level of the crime that was committed?
No, I don't think so, because there are several reasons behind it. As we are aware about that, Act has been amended. The Food Safety Act has been amended, and the power has been given to ADMs and SDMs, and to pursue the prosecution first. This is the first step, basically, where the complaint has been gone and the case has been, when sample has been taken, and the prosecution, the trial has been committed over there. So I think we have faced the difficulty that particular place, one, and in respect of the punishment, that punishment is really less. I think a strong message, a strong punishment should be there. It is about the health of the people of citizens of the country. It is also about the safety and security of the of a body. So I think there would be a specific, and there would be some larger punishment must be given. As one of the person speaker has been says that if no injury has been caused to the body, then the punishment is about 6 months, and the sum 1 lakh rupees can be given. Maximum punishment when the injury has not been shown, it is about around 2 years. That's it. So I don't think it is a sufficient one. It is about the long-term effect of any product which is discriminated, which is in which some substandard material has been used. So I think there would be some greater punishment should be imposed upon the
Okay. Also, for example, we talk about the recent Johnson & Johnson case, where there were carcinogenic ingredients that were found in their baby products, in the talcum powder that was used on babies. Now there was millions of dollars worth of compensation as settlement that had to be paid by Johnson & Johnson. Here, can the same punishment be applied? Who decides how much compensation is to be given and to whom? Keeping in mind that these devotees who may have visited the temple during that period, the 6 months during which ghee was procured from this particular company, and consumed consumed the laddus, consumed the prasadam, how do you even track down every single one of these consumers? Yeah, go ahead. Yes, KV Dhananjay.
As a matter of civil law, the devotees could come together and sue the company that supplied this, contaminated laddus, and also the TTD, But the problem with that approach would be if a civil court would find the TTD liable. TTD is a public body. It is financed by the government of Andhra Pradesh. So it will be the government and taxpayers' money that will effectively be footing the bill. So if only and also this is all enabled by various statutes where if officers of the TTD were involved, unless and until you can show that they knew that they were in fact contracting for contaminated supply of laddoos, they cannot be held liable. So certainly the company that has supplied the contaminants, that company can be sued, and people, the devotees, should get together and file a civil suit and probably bankrupt that company. But again, you do know that in India, civil suits and then all the way the appeals and all the way further appeals to the Supreme Court would generally take 10 to 12 years. So typically. So if this is fast tracked, it's about 5 to 7 years. So, but I think devotees will have to just do that because the laws, as we've been discussing just now, probably are not enough here because the most that any punishment would be, any imprisonment could be awarded for these offenses are not more than 3 years. Now, if you take Section 295A of the Indian Penal Code, which talks about hurting religious beliefs and,
Yeah, okay.
So the most punishment is 3 years for that. And under the Food Safety and Standards Act, the punishment would be less than 1 year because injury, as the law cannot recognize physical injury for this act of contamination because the
Yeah, but then
contaminants
how do
are
you
already.
put a price? How do you put a price in saying that 3 years is enough and certain amount of penalty is enough? Keeping in mind this is a very unique case where it is the faith of a community that has been shaken, that has been betrayed over here.
True, and the law always evolves. This is a law that we've had since 1860. By the way, this was drafted in 1834. So they probably did not envisage a situation like this much earlier. So now that we've seen a situation like this, it's incumbent on us probably to think of a more deterrent law, which means for offenses in the future. Now we have a principle under our constitution, which almost every civilized country would have, which is if an offense is committed today, then at the time when the offense was committed, the law enforces all that the law would be applied. You cannot enhance punishment prospectively. That is, the earlier speaker was saying that judges have the discretion that where it is warranted, they can impose a greater punishment. That there's no such discretion in criminal matters for judges of courts in India. Judges in courts in India will only award punishment that is prescribed by the statute, and to the extent that is specified in the statute, they have no discretion whatsoever to go over and above that. If anybody here involved here is going to be convicted under Section 295A of the IPC, I mean, I'm talking about IPC because that's the one that's more common and familiar to a vast number of your viewers. There is, of course, a repeal of that law, and then there's a similar provision that's come in the new law. So the judge at the most can only convict a person and sentence him to a term of 3 years, not one day more than that.
Okay, all right. Advocate Vineet Jindal, taking a cue from a number of similar cases and lawsuits that have been filed over adulteration of food consumables from across the globe. There have been a number of cases in United States of America. Do you think their laws are more stringent and consumers are given the right to, given greater rights, bigger, more powerful rights to then sue these companies and organizations that tamper with consumables that cause harm, that are then harmfully impacting the people's health? Advocate Jindal, can you hear me? Okay, the same question to you, Advocate Dhananjay. Can our laws be evolved here? And is there a possibility we can follow the same rule book that America follows? Because when it comes to giving consumers the power, the one example that stands out is the American law.
Yes, I think some innovation might be necessary. Hypothetically, if we would in fact make a small tweak to our laws, if we would let in lawyers in America come down to India and then practice here, and if we open up contingency, the concept of contingency, yes. Now, one of the reasons why America sees such robust trial advocacy is that, in India, a lawyer who represents a client cannot tell a client that, look, should you win, should you get so much of judgment money, then give me a percentage of that money in fees. Now that rule is prohibited in India. I mean, that arrangement is prohibited in India. In America, it's not so. Lawyers are permitted to charge a sum of the judgment fee, a judgment money as their fee, and that is how all these tort actions and mass civil actions go on in America. Now, should you invite those lawyers into India and say that they are free to consult, or rather, they are free to contact the victims of this massive, mashup, cover up, and then sue the concerned company involved? Then they would certainly do many things to get this matter done in 4 years or 6 years. I mean, I'm just trying to be creative here.
Okay.
Short of that, I don't see cases actually settling or happening before 5-7 years. I mean, it's important. Sometimes that's an evil, but that evil produces some good. If you would go back to the Bhopal gas leak disaster, what happened in India is that so many people lost their lives. But within a very short span of time, lawyers in America, aided by the NGOs in India who wanted to bring the perpetrators to book, filed civil action against those companies in the United States. And what did the Parliament of India do? Parliament of India wanted to scuttle those actions because the people in governance then knew that should those actions proceed, the Union Carbide company would be completely bankrupted, because the courts in America would not have let that company continue for one more day. They would have made sure that the company would have been imposed with such great costs, it would be bankrupted. And what did our parliament do? We came out with a very, very monstrous law that said nobody will represent the victims except the government of India. And that is to essentially kill all those class actions.
Okay, all right. Last word from Advocate Vineet Jindal. Again, the question, as Advocate Dhananjay said, that even if it was fast track, it would take about 6 to 7 years for the case to be wound up and the Supreme Court passing its judgment. Is there any way that consumers, the pilgrims, the devotees could get instant justice?
Yes, why not? It is not only about adulteration product issue now. This is Tirupati Mandir issue is bigger. It is about the sanity of the place. It is about the religious things which has been shattered here by virtue of contaminated laddoos, which has been having fish and beef fat. So it is a greater punishment would be provided, as I have written to Home Minister and requested him to impose NSA in this matter, especially because it is amount to disrupt the public order. It is amount to shatter the religious things between our crores of Hindus. So it is in the hands of the government. They can impose special laws in this matter. This is something different issue, and I think that will be more appropriate if we are going for an
Okay, all right, okay. I thank all of you for joining me on the telecast, and on that note, I slip into a short break, and it has been an interesting debate. We will, of course, keep delving into what are going to be the implications after the Supreme Court takes suo motu cognizance of it. The Supreme Court hears the case, and this is going to go on for weeks together, if not months. And stay tuned on Newsx for all the updates.